Alright, so welcome back to the channel. Liam Douglas with Liam Photography, and in today's video we're going to talk about tips for travel photography. Now I know there's a lot of people out there that like to do travel photography. I do myself as well. And so we're going to start off with a good compact camera bag. Now this is one that I recently picked up on Amazon. It was about $45. It's got a nice coating on the outside that's water resistant, so you don't have to worry about your gear getting wet. And it's got enough zippers and compartments to store quite a bit of gear. So let's open it up here and get to the goodies inside. And first we have that. Alright, I'm going to go over the items after I get them out of the bag, just to make things a little bit easier. Now, one of the things that I'm sure you've probably heard, especially if you're on TikTok at all, is that the X100V by Fujifilm is one of the best cameras ever. And it is a fantastic camera, don't get me wrong, but there is a cheaper route that you can go. So the camera that I have, that I like to use for travel and street photography, is the Fujifilm X-E4. Now the X-E4 has the exact same sensor and processor as the Fujifilm X100V. The X100V does have an optical and electronic viewfinder hybrid, where the X-E4's viewfinder is strictly electronic only. However, some people will say, well, the X-E4 isn't as ergonomic as the X100V because it doesn't have a hand grip. Well, you can buy an Arca Swiss plate, L-bracket plate, that adds a hand grip for just a few dollars. I got this one on Amazon for like 30 bucks, something like that. And it's metal construction, and the grip has a texture to it. It is a plastic on the grip part, and it's got texture, so it makes it easier to hold on to, especially if you have large hands like I do. Now, one of the advantages of using the X-E4 is, unlike the X100V, this is an interchangeable lens body. So the X100V, all of the X100 Fujifilm bodies come with a 23 megapixel f2 weather resistant lens that's permanently attached to the body. Now the great thing about that is, being it's an APS-C camera, a 23 millimeter on one of these bodies is 35 millimeter in full frame equivalent, which is the perfect, in my opinion, focal length for street and travel photography. Now, I've got the X-E4 here, as I mentioned a moment ago, but I also have the Fujifilm X-F 23mm f2, and this is a weather sealed lens as well. So, now the body is not weather sealed, so I don't want you to get confused there. The X100V is more weather sealed than the X-E4, but it's the same basic physical form factor, small, compact, very lightweight. But as I mentioned, the advantage of the X-E4 is I can change lenses on this body where you cannot on the X100V or any of the other X100 bodies. So here, my X-E4 has the 23mm XF f2 lens made by Fujifilm. So this is the exact same lens that's permanently attached to the X100V. So the same 35mm full frame equivalent focal length. Okay, so getting into travel photography, here's some tips I'm going to give you to make your travel photography more successful. First of all, no matter where you're going, if it's an exotic place in a foreign country that you've always wanted to visit, maybe it's Paris, maybe it's Italy, maybe it's Australia, Japan, wherever, you're going to want to do a little bit of research before you get to the city you're going to be staying in. You want to get an idea of the kind of sites that you can find there, the kind of places you can go to get photographs for photographic opportunities. Now, this doesn't mean just popular landmarks. A lot of people make that mistake. You don't want to end up going on an exotic trip like this, and then you come home with the same crappy, blasé, landmark shots that everybody gets. The Eiffel Tower, or Big Ben if you're in London, or the Sydney Opera House if you're in Sydney, Australia. I apologize for the traffic. You want to get other types of photography as well. So the nice thing about having this body with the 23mm full frame equivalent lens, you can do street photography with it. You could go to open markets, fish market, anything like that, get some new and unique and interesting perspectives. But it's always a good idea to research where you're going to be going ahead of time, just to get an idea of what you might find as far as photographic opportunities are concerned. Now, some of the other gear that you want to have with you, I always recommend keep your lenses minimal. Only take 1 or 2 lenses. I prefer generally to stick with just 1 lens if I'm going to be traveling, because I want my kit to be as light as possible. However, if you want a little more flexibility than you would get with the 23mm here, which again is 35mm full frame equivalent, that is fine. So let's say I want a little more flexibility. So I'm going to take off my 23mm lens, and I'm going to grab one of my recent purchases, which is the Tamron 18 to 300mm. Now you got to keep in mind though that this lens is an f3.5 to 6.3, so not the greatest apertures. If you're shooting in daylight, it's going to be fine for that. You're not going to have any issues at all, but it does give you more flexibility because you have 18mm on the wide end and you have 300mm on the telephoto lens end, so that you can zoom in more. Now in full frame equivalent, this lens is a 27mm to 450mm. So you've got considerably more reach, being you're on an APS-C body. Instead of only being limited to 300, and as far as field of view and 35mm full frame equivalent, this is going to be a 450 because you multiply by the 1.5 crop factor. So this will give you more flexibility and more capabilities, and it's still fairly light and compact. It does have vibration reduction. It does have a lock on the barrel, so you don't have to worry about lens drift when you're not shooting. If you're holding the camera like this, you don't have to worry about the lens dropping down on you. You can keep it locked in place. Now, other things that I recommend you have with you when you're doing travel photography. You're going to want to have spare batteries. So I've got an extra battery here for my X-E4. I've got 2, the one in the body and one always on the ready. I keep this one charged in my camera bag at all times so I can quickly and easily swap out. Now, another thing that you're going to want to have that I didn't pull out of my bag yet is extra memory cards. So I have this nice little zipper memory card wallet, and I carry a plethora of spare SD cards in here. So I've got plenty of extra ones. I fill up a card, I can just pop the full one out, pop a fresh one in, and continue shooting with no disruptions, no issues at all, which is extremely nice when you're doing travel photography. Now, another thing I recommend that you have with you is an external hard drive. Now, this is one of the SanDisk external hard drives. These are extremely small and compact. They have a ruggedized external rubber coating to them to make them shock resistant, and they're very small and compact, as you can see from right here. They have a little notch in the corner so you could attach a carabiner and hang it on your camera bag or backpack, making it convenient to carry. Or some of them come with this case, some of them you have to buy the case separately. I don't know what the difference is. I have 3 of these drives, 2 that are 2 terabyte. This is one of the 2 terabyte models. They didn't come with the zipper case. I had to buy it separately on Amazon, but the 1 terabyte one that I bought at Best Buy had the zipper case with it for the same price as without it. I don't understand that. Now, the drive is USB-C, but it does come with a pigtail that has the adapter, so you can either do USB-C to USB-C if you have a newer MacBook Pro or Air or something like that, or even a newer PC laptop. A lot of them have USB-C. Or if you have a laptop that only has USB-A, you have the adapter here, no worries. USB-A on this end, USB-C on this end. So that's a handy thing to have, is your external hard drive to offload your photos when you're back at your hotel or Airbnb at the end of the day, whatever the case may be. Now, another thing that I recommend is, in order to get the best photography when you're traveling, you want to get up early and stay out late. Now, what I mean by that is, everybody knows, or at least you should know, that the best hours to get light are sunrise and sunset. You have the golden hour and you have the blue hour. Those are when you're going to get your best light for photography. So if you want to get those fantastic sunrise shots, you've got to get up early. You got to get up before the sun comes up, get a shower, get some coffee in you or a little breakfast, wake yourself up so that you can be out there. Get there about an hour early or 30 minutes early to where you want to shoot from and get yourself staged and be good to go. Now, another piece of gear you can carry with you is a tripod. I don't generally recommend a tripod for travel photography just because they're generally kind of large and cumbersome, and they're a bit of a pain to drag on and off planes and stuff like that. You know, so especially if you're going to be flying, you're probably going to want to leave the tripod at home and just do without it. Now, another thing I would recommend is always be observant of your surroundings. You want to be safe when you're doing travel photography. And if you've been paying attention at all to general photography news over the last year or so, there's been a rash of photographers getting robbed for their gear in cities like San Francisco, California. I'm not sure why, and I'm not saying this to bash San Francisco in any way, but there seems to be a lot of camera theft happening to tourists and professional photographers that are out shooting around the San Francisco area. A lot of them have gotten robbed for their equipment in the last couple of years. Now, don't be a hero. If somebody comes up to you to steal your gear, don't fight with them. Just give up your gear. Ask them if you can take out your memory card first or just pop it out of the camera before you hand them the camera. Let them take your gear. That's why I recommend everybody have insurance. You can join PPA, which is Professional Photographers of America, and you get equipment insurance as part of your membership. So you can replace that gear. You can't replace your life if you get killed over your camera. So don't be a hero. Give it up. But try to be as safe as possible when you're doing travel photography and you're in an area that you're not familiar with. Now, another thing that I like to do, and I do recommend it to other people but use common sense, is get lost on purpose. Now, what I mean by this is if you're in a city you've never been to before, try to get off the beaten path. That's where you're going to get the new, interesting, and unique perspectives and photos that most everybody else misses. Generally, people, when they go to a major city like Paris, again, Sydney, London, Edinburgh, wherever, they're always looking for the big ticket items as far as attractions, landmarks, sights to see, things to photograph. So don't follow everybody else. Get off the beaten path. You know, slip down an alley into a little marketplace that's over this way, you know, and you can find out from locals where there are some cool and interesting places that you might be able to go with your camera and get some new and unique images that nobody else has gotten before. But again, ask the locals if the area you want to go to is safe. Make sure it's a safe area so you don't get hurt or you don't get attacked or whatever the case may be. It's also a good idea if you're going to go out into an area like this and just explore on your own with your camera for the day. Take the business card for the hotel or the Airbnb that you're staying at, and at the end of the day, you can always call yourself an Uber or a Lyft or whatever, some sort of share ride or a taxi cab to get back to the place you're staying at. You won't have to worry about that. So that's another big thing. That's a good thing to do when you're doing travel photography and you're somewhere that you've never been before. Now, as I mentioned earlier, make sure when you get back to your hotel or Airbnb or whatever the case may be at the end of each day, offload that day's images, clear out those memory cards so that you can reuse them the next day. I always recommend having backups, so offload them from your memory card, or if you're like me and you carry a couple of dozen SD cards at all time, or 12 to 18 at all time, you can leave them on the memory card and just put your full memory cards in a separate zipper case or reverse them in here so you can tell which ones are full and which ones are empty, and still offload them onto the external hard drive and maybe even onto a partition or folder on your primary hard drive on your laptop or MacBook or whatever the case may be. Or with this hard drive, being it's USB-C, you could back up your photos to your iPad Pro if you have an iPad Pro, because the iPad Pro has USB-C as its charging port, and it does recognize external devices, especially hard drives and card readers. So that's another great thing that you can do. But above all, I want you to be safe and have fun. Just go out and explore. Have your adventure time. Now, chances are, if you're married, you got kids, and you're on vacation, and you're traveling with your family, they're going to get exasperated at you stopping to take pictures of everything. That's why I recommend, you know, get up early before your wife and your kids. Go out and explore for a couple hours while they're still sleeping in the room. And stay out later in the day, you know, through sunset. You know, they're going to be tired towards the end of the day, especially if you got young kids. They're going to want to be back at the hotel pool or whatever, back in the hotel room watching TV, whatever the case may be. And you can go out and get a couple of hours shooting sunset photos at your destination, wherever you're traveling or wherever you're on vacation. So those are my primary tips for you when it comes to travel photography. But above all else, like I said, go out there, have fun, be creative, and see what you can get that nobody else has gotten. All right, I want to thank everybody for taking the time to watch this video. Please remember to subscribe to the channel, like the video, comment on it, share it out on social media, hit the little bell icon so you can be notified when new content drops, and I will see you next time.